Xenoblade Chronicles established itself as one of the best JRPGs of the last decade when it originally came out for the Wii in 2010. 5 years later, it got a release on the 3DS with newly added portability for the series. Now in 2020, Xenoblade Chronicles sees its definitive release on the Nintendo Switch, finally bringing the 2010 original to HD on both at home and on the go. For its time, and even now, Xenoblade Chronicles told a fascinating story on an epic scale. Many years ago, the world was dominated by gigantic creatures known as Titans. They roamed the world and battled for power. Years later, these creatures died off and their bodies became the very land and soil that would sprout out life. One of these sprouts of life was Colony 9, the home of our protagonist Shulk, whose village is being attacked by the evil Mechon. The Mechon are a robotic race that eat the human-like species in the Xenoblade world. The only weapon strong enough to take on the Mechon is the red glowing blade known as the Monado, a mysterious weapon with all sorts of abilities, one of them being giving visions of the future to the wielder. After a tragic event subdues Shulk's home, he vows to get stronger and learn how to use the Monado to avenge his home and stop the Mechon once and for all. I always felt that Xenoblade Chronicles told a more serious tone and dramatic story when compared to the rest of the series. While Xenoblade Chronicles X was action-packed and 2 followed a bit more of the anime trope, the original always felt like a shock of how well written of a story it was. Shulk himself is a lovable protagonist who always puts himself out there for his friends. His friends also paint a beautifully diverse cast of personalities that easily got me excited to learn more about them. For those that have played Xenoblade Chronicles before, this new version includes a post-game chapter that's roughly 20 hours long. The bonus content titled Future Connected can be started from the main menu and details the events after the main campaign. Taking place exactly 1 year after the main story, Shulk and Melia team up to tie up one last loose thread. While it was a bit saddening to not see the whole gang in the spotlight, narratively it makes sense for Melia to get the spotlight, especially if you know the final moments of the main campaign. There are 2 things that define the Xenoblade Chronicles gameplay for me, and it's its setting and its combat. Like I mentioned before, this world is constructed out of these gigantic godlike titans that would roam the world and fight each other. That's pretty epic. What that means in the present though is that all of these environments are on the corpse of a giant. The lush forests, the snowy tundra, and the mountainous terrains are all on the body of this one gigantic creature. You see it across the horizon as the setting crafts together a world that feels ripped out of the Avatar world. The fact that this world is so large and open yet doesn't feel tedious to navigate or repetitive is a feat on its own. Navigation of the world is traditionally done by foot, but the auto-run option makes running through it easier. Furthermore, you can fast travel to any previously discovered landmarks. This definitely helped fetch quests and side missions feel less like a chore. Oddly enough though, I wasn't as tempted to use the fast travel feature because running through the world felt vast and extraordinary. I wanted to see it with my own eyes even more than once. As for the combat, it uses the series' traditional auto-attack combat. When instigating an attack, Shulk pulls out his weapon and starts attacking the targeted or nearest enemy. At the bottom of the screen is your list of skills and arts that you can activate and refill as time goes by. It's a battle system that feels like a mutated MMO, but it works in its favor. It isn't just Shulk fighting though. Along with him are his party members that each feel like a class of their own. Shulk plays more like a DPS while Ren is the tank and Charlotte is the healer. Each plays differently from each other thanks to the skills they uniquely have. You can also play as any one of these characters so long as you have them set as the party leader and they can choose from the menu. Sadly, this feels like a dated mechanic, especially after playing Final Fantasy VII Remastered. I love being able to switch on the fly between characters in that game because I didn't have to rely on the AI to carry out what I wanted to do if Cloud was down. In the case of Xenoblade, I'm lucky if the AI does what I want it to. To be fair, they are useful when it comes to chain attacks. These are powerful moves that can be used with the meter at the top of the screen. Activating a chain lets each character use a skill or art, and then the following character continues on the chain with their own. If the skills used are all of a matching color, then the damage is boosted. It's a great system that can chain up to do some serious damage. A great sense of satisfaction always comes anytime a successful chain was used. Backing up the combat is the new menus that don't necessarily change up how you upgrade your skills or arts, but rather just simplifies it. The menus are much easier to read and I can understand how things are connected to each other. Skill trees, for example, detail how effective they are and what categories they specifically affect, letting you pick the right one for the specific battle situation. Altogether, Xenoblade Chronicles feels like one gigantic world worth exploring with a combat system that's everything but shallow. It's an easier to grasp system than it was before, but one that still requires you to be attentive, or you'll be destroyed. Luckily, this version's a bit more forgiving, offering a casual mode if you find things a bit too challenging. This mode can be toggled on or off and ultimately just helps lower the challenge of larger enemies. The opposite expert mode throws your XP into a pool after every fight, letting you better funnel it into certain characters. For those looking to get through some of the side content faster, the casual mode helps streamline a lot of those bloated fights. This definitive edition sees a major rehaul of all the visuals present both on the Wii and the 3DS. Put them side by side and there's no doubt that some major work went into improving the presentation. Textures are redone for a lot of the environments. Character models look more on par with their Super Smash Bros. Ultimate counterparts than the original blurry models on the Wii. Even the UI elements have gotten a facelift. For example, the battle elements are spaced out and streamlined, letting you see more of the action rather than just the arts and skills taking up the lower bottom half of the screen. The menus have also gotten simplified, letting you more easily navigate the art upgrades and skill links. So far, so good, but maybe not as good as everyone was hoping for. This definitive edition indeed does a lot to make the first game feel more on par with the Switch's sequel. However, there's still a handful of muddy blurry textures, whether it's a building here or there, or some of the terrain textures. While the effort in the upgrade is appreciated, the contrast between upgraded textures and non-upgraded ones is a bit more jarring. As for its performance, Xenoblade 1 sees a comparable output with the Switch's sequel. Resolution in dock mode is set to a dynamic 720p that dips as low as 504p. Portable mode, on the other hand, is set to a dynamic 540p that goes as low as 378p. Frame rate across the board is a mostly stable 30 FPS outside of the moments where there's a major drop in resolution. There's no question that this is the best Xenoblade has ever looked on the platform, although the improvements from something like the Wii to Nintendo Switch may not be as dramatic as you expected. Character models get the biggest improvements, with their expressions actually being visible and thus letting the heavier parts of the story truly deliver. Back from the original release is the soundtrack that helped make Xenoblade Chronicles as memorable as a series as it is. You do get the option to play the original version or the newly remastered versions made specifically for the Switch's release. I personally gravitated towards the new versions. Something about them just feels fuller, brighter, and uplifting. I don't think I ever felt like the original music was missing something until I heard the remasters, and that goes to show how well they turned out. The voice cast from the original game has also returned, including for the bonus post-game chapter. Whether you're a fan of the original British English voice cast or not, the option to play in English or in Japanese is there for your choosing. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition truly is the best version of the game, both for on-the-go and at-home play. Xenoblade Chronicles was an impressive JRPG for its time. The fact that the world of that caliber could even run on the Wii, a system whose tech is based on the GameCube technologies, it was an astonishing feat. To see its visuals and presentation be brought up to par with its gameplay and story is truly satisfying, despite thinking that some more improvements could have been made. The bonus content, along with the quality of life improvements, make it well worth revisiting, and if you've never dived into the series before, you've never had a better reason to than now.